Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Drunk Camera Reviews. Today we have the Nikon F6, Nikon's best film camera, to be honest. Now this camera was released in 2004, but you can still buy it new today. New in air quotes. They aren't making them anymore, but they still have stock of new ones from when they made them a long time ago. So technically, you could buy this brand new. I mean, I just got the fucking B&H catalog a few days ago, and boom, there it is, right next to the Leica MP. You can buy a new old stock Nikon F6 for $2,500, which is kind of crazy because used, and this one's used, you can get them for $900. Or less if you're good at bargaining with people. I don't know. So you could technically buy a not really terribly used Nikon F6 for like less than half the cost of a new one, which is crazy. I don't even know why you would buy a new one when this, like, you can get cameras like this, and this thing is like pristine, and you can get it for like $900. Now this one was lent to me, of course, by my good friend and Nikon enthusiast, Brendan. He's got way too many Nikon cameras and doesn't know what to do with all of them. I'm going to go through a little bit of the Nikon F6 and also this 135 f2 defocus control lens, which this thing is cool in itself. I mean, it's just a beast of a lens. So let's start off with the F6. Now, this camera was basically the guts of a Nikon F5, kind of dumbed down a little bit. It was basically meant to be a very high-end consumer camera, basically for a rich hobbyist. So it's got 11 AF points, the autofocus is very fast, and its shutter speed can go from 1/8,000th of a second all the way down to 30 seconds, which you have to go through the menus to do all that, but it's very, very versatile in such a pretty small, compact body. Now it does have some heft to it, but all in all, this camera is very comfortable to use for long periods of time. I've used this for about 2 months now, and it is just such a good camera to hold in the hand. It just fits so nicely, but yeah, it's a great camera. Now, to start, we'll start with the front of the camera. Just a few things that I do like about this is you have your autofocus selector right here. You've got your continuous, your single, and your manual focus. And you can just switch between them whenever you need to. It's not the best little lever to use, but it's very, very simple. It's just that little guy right there. That's basically it on the front of it. You have some custom function buttons, but I didn't even touch those. And of course you also have your lens removal button, which is quite handy. And I still can't, Nikon having their lenses attached the other way than most cameras, it always fucks with me. Now of course, on the top of the camera, you've got, of course, your lens rewind. That of course opens the back of the camera, but I still have some FP4 in there which I need to finish shooting, so I'm going to go and do that before I open the back and show you all that nonsense. But you of course have your shooting modes, which has your single, continuous low, continuous high, continuous silent, which is a pretty cool, and then of course you have your timer and another setting that I've never touched, so I'm not going to go over it. You also, of course, have your screen, which has all of your information on it, and it also has a sweet backlight. So I'm not sure, I'll put another video in here, but it has a really nice backlight. So if you're in dark locations, you just flip this to the right, and it just turns on this backlight. That's super handy. But you also have, of course, your mode dial, which you change just by holding it in and just pushing this dial on the back. The dials feel really good on this camera. They are just so tactile, and they have this kind of I don't know, it's like a rubberized coating on the outside of them. They are just so nice to use. But that's basically everything up top. Of course, you got your shutter button. Nobody needs a refresher on the shutter button, because every fucking camera has one. Okay, onto the back. Now the back of the camera, of course, you have your number 2 rewind button. Number 1 is down here, which you have to lift a little flat, push this, boom, rewind. It's done as easy as that. You also have your exposure bracket button. I've never touched that, don't really bother to using, I mean, with digital exposure bracketing, why would you do it on film? I don't know why. I feel like that's, when film cameras were that was everything that they had, then you could do it. I guess if you wanted to do like some artsy-fartsy composite stuff, but I don't really care for it. So that button's there. You also have, of course, your auto exposure lock and your AF on buttons, of course, and those just do what they're supposed to do. Now, you also have this little D-pad. Now, this D-pad is the handiest thing because you can just sit here with this back screen and move your autofocus point around to wherever you need it to be. And this back screen is probably one of my favorite things because oh, I just took a picture. Fuck! I wasted a frame, damn it. So this back screen is super handy because it gives you all of your settings right there. So you don't have to look at the top of the camera. You can just take your eye off, look at the back, and there it is. It also has it in the viewfinder, of course. And I mean, the viewfinder is actually super nice on this camera. Very big. I think it's almost 100% coverage, but it's very, very easy to focus, even manual focusing. It's super, super nice. But you also, of course, have for your long exposures, you have your little viewfinder block out so you don't get any extra light in there. Very, very handy. Never used it. But you also have your lock dial here on the back. That's very nice. So in case you want to lock out this dial and don't want to change anything accidentally, you just flip that, boom, good to go. Now this dial is probably one of the handiest ones. This sets your AF, your autofocus zone. So you can just sit here, flip this, and you can go from full area to single point, which I usually keep it on single point because I like just being able to focus on one point in the center, or I can move it over to the side. But the AF it's pretty fast, although I wish they had a little bit more range either direction. Even up and down's okay, but it really doesn't cover the whole area. You can see, it's very centralized, so that's kind of a bummer. And I already showed you the rewind button number 1. Now you also have this little dial right here. Now this allows you, of course, if you wanted to change your ISO manually, you can. So if you say you want to push some film or anything, you just hold that button in, change the menu. Now you also have, of course, your menu. Now this would take hours to go over, so I'm not going to get into it. But this menu is probably the most intensive of any film camera I've ever used. It's crazy. And I'm sure you already know that the Nikon F6 actually stores EXIF data of your film rolls. So you can go back 1,000 film rolls and select the EXIF data from them. And you need a special little reader to be able to actually extract it to a computer. And God, that just seems like way too much work. I'll just guess and say, hey, it was shot at this speed, whatever, fuck it. So yeah, lots of stuff under this little thing in that menu. So, and I mean, flash, I don't use flash. I don't have a flash. Info, yeah, that's how you get to those rolls. And you can there's so many rolls of film. I don't think we've shot too many with this, but you can erase it, of course, and just do whatever you want with it. But yeah, it's a handy feature to be able to look through your EXIF data, especially if you're like, hey, what was my setting for this shot? And you can just go back through in camera and see it. It's pretty handy. Now, one thing I did miss up on the top of the camera is, of course, your metering options. Now, it's kind of a little bit hard to see, but of course you have your multi-zone matrix metering. I usually keep it on that because it's very good. This is probably one of it was taken, I think, from the F5, but it is an excellent metering system. And you can do spot metering, full zone, or center weighted. And it is it's wonderful. Shit's gorgeous. Now, the bottom of the camera, there really isn't too much. Of course, you have your batteries, some 2 CR2 batteries, CR123 batteries. And these ones, kind of expensive, but they do last quite a while, which is pretty nice. And of course, you can get the battery grip for it as well, so you can just use some AA's, which I think that's what the F4 had, which was super handy. Yeah, Yeah, the F4, going from the F4 to this was really a incredible jump just because of the autofocus capability and just the ease of use of this camera. Now the F4 was very nice. I did like that camera, but this camera is a camera I could buy and use every single day and never have an issue with. I've shot it for 2 months. Batteries are still good. I've gone through, I think, 10 or 11 rolls of film through this. Batteries are still good. I don't even think Brendan has changed the batteries on this camera yet, and he's owned it for months. And it's like, and it still shows that it still has a lot of battery life left. It's just such a fantastic camera. And if you do have a chance to buy one, I mean, you could probably go, if you wanted more like fast shooting, you could probably go for an F5, but this thing is just unreal for the ability that it has in terms of capability for your everyday hobbyist photographer. It's just a great, it's the perfect Nikon film camera. There, I said it. There's gonna be a lot of people say, well, I mean, the F3 is the perfect camera. I mean, I've used the F3. The F3 is great. I love that camera. For an analog camera like the F3, going to something like this is just, especially an autofocus camera, it's so nice. If you want to go and slow it down and use manual focus lenses, the F3, I still would probably prefer an FM3A over the F3, or even an FM2. The FM2 is, oh, such a nice camera. But yeah, this camera is such a great camera. There's so many things to say about it, but I can't conjure one of them. So I'm gonna leave it at that. This is an amazing camera. Now, let's move on to this. This is this hunk of glass is the 135 f2 DC. Now the DC stands for defocus control. This is a very, very weird lens, and I haven't really gotten around to fully dissecting how this works, but this dial right up here will actually let you, I kind of always keep it centered just because I don't really want to get too, because I found that it's kind of soft if you do it wide open and also use the defocus control like full lock. So I've kind of kept it centralized just because I like shooting it at f2, like ISO 100, ISO 50, f2, just get all that background blur. Speaking of background blur, this is incredibly creamy. It's sharp, what's in focus, and the background just kind of melts away. It is so nice, and this lens isn't terribly expensive either. So you could definitely get this for a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, adapt it to it, and have an amazing portrait lens that has a built-in hood as well, which is pretty nice. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of finicky a bit, and I don't know. I'd rather a screw-on one, but having one that just kind of boop, and then it slides right back into place. So this allows you to focus, or where you want your defocus to be, your main section of defocusing, you can choose forward, the front, or the rear. Say if you're shooting like a portrait and you want to have a lot of foreground bokeh, you can set it to up in here, like f2.8, f4, and the foreground will be more out of focus. Or you can set it the other way and the background will be more out of focus. It's very, very clever. Very clever stuff for Nikon to do, and I don't really think too many people have done it since. Absolutely incredible lens, and it's got some heft to it. But putting this next to my Canon 50 f1.4 from Sigma, I mean, it's basically the same size. I'm gonna get you out of the way for a second. It's basically the same size. I mean, similar. This one's heavier because it has more lens elements, but a 135 f2 that weighs about as much as a 50 f1.4, that's not terrible. To be honest, if you have a chance to get your hands on this lens, this would be an excellent option for some shooting portraits, or even doing some like event photography. If you're shooting like concerts or something, this would probably be an excellent lens choice for you. I know people have shot wedding. I mean, this has been a workhorse lens for Nikon users for a long time. So I definitely suggest that everyone who gets a chance to shoot with this, definitely do it. Because that'll be, I mean, it's just a class lens. So that's going to be it for me today for this episode of Drunk Camera Reviews. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a like. It keeps my little heart running and to keep me making these videos. So if you have any questions, or if you want to let me know how I did with this video, leave a comment down below. And if you want to see the next video, which should be pretty good, I've got something special, subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you very much and have a good day.